saya balik sini memang untuk
I have personally witnessed the dedication shown by Muhammad Khairi Adham Abdul Muin, 28 years old, from Kampung Selendang, Padang Tengku, Lipis, Pahang. Not many young people these days are interested in the craft of making machetes and knives. This field is usually dominated by the otai or veterans. Now, the University Selangor Unicel graduate has been running his own workshop since 2019 behind his house. He has even created his own brand of machete known as Parang Lipis.
Bila kita dah berjumpa dengan ramai tukang, bila saya dah berjumpa dengan ramai tukang, saya tahu untuk rujuk benda-benda tertentu, contoh bab sepuhan, ada tukang-tukang tertentu yang kita boleh rujuk. Kalau bab canai, grinding, kita boleh rujuk tukang-tukang tertentu.
According to this native of Kuala Lipis, Pahang, it all began from his concern about being scolded by his father for losing a machete. The difficulty in finding blacksmith in his village made him think that the craft of making Malay knife, machete and weapon might disappear if no long-term effort were made to preserve it. However, Adham can now smile as his work has received the approval of the Sultan of Pahang, Al-Sultan Abdullah Riayatuddin Al-Mustafa Billah Shah. Moreover, his machetes are increasingly in demand from overseas.
Orang-orang di luar negara sana dah mula menerima parang sebagai alat untuk bawa masuk ke dalam hutan. So kita nak, even parang tu sendiri ada perkataan bahasa Melayu.
Additionally, the youngest of 3 siblings says his workshop can produce various types of machete reaching up to 400 blades per month with reasonable size, length and selling prices. Buyers and orders for Parang Lipis come with a warranty of up to 5 months. So far, according to Adham, many customers are satisfied with the quality of the parang they produce. In the meantime, the Parang Lipis workshop also creates job opportunities for young people in the area.
Sebabkan dia menubuhkan industri parang ni, hampir lebih kurang tujuh pekerja. Dan 7 pekerja, 7 keluarga. Dia boleh menampung keperluan 7 keluarga kan. Tapi kalau akan datang, kalau dia boleh besar seperti syarikat parang yang dimiliki oleh syarikat besar, mungkin dia lebih pada itu lagi.
We saw few young people, especially in their 20s, interested in collecting or making traditional Malay weapon. It is hoped that some institution will play a role in ensuring this heritage continues. However, what is certain is that Muhammad Khairi Adham Abdul Muin's effort in producing the Parang Lipis brand and elevating the unique traditional tools of the Malay community and the name Lipis on the international stage are certainly something to be proud of.
Ini yang bang mentah je lah.
Belum siap lagi.
Lagi.
Beneath the pristine waters off Thailand's Phuket Island, an environmental threat looms large. Divers work to disentangle abandoned fishing gear from coral, which have trapped unsuspecting fish inside. Abandoned, lost or discarded fishing gear, also known as ghost gear, are the deadliest form of marine plastic litter. This marine waste comprises ropes, nets, lines, traps, and other fishing equipment, often made up of durable plastics.
อย่างแรกเลยก็คือเราจะจดบันทึกว่าเราเจอที่ไหนวันที่เท่าไหร่นะครับผมแล้วก็เราเจอ ที่ความลึกกี่เมตรอุปกรณ์ประมงคืออะไรนะครับแล้วก็มันอยู่บนพื้นผิวอะไรนะครับเช่นเป็นปะการังหรือเปล่าหรือเป็นหินเป็นทรายอย่างนั้นนะครับ
An estimated 1 million tons of ghost gear are lost in the ocean each year, World Wildlife Fund, WWF. Over time, they will break down into microplastics, contributing to marine plastic pollution, impacting marine creatures and humans through seafood ingestion. While there are several scuba diving groups working to remove ghost gear from reefs through cleanup missions, there is no system put in place to track the collection of the plastic litter.
เรามีการเก็บกู้อวนประมงอยู่ตลอดเรามีชุมชนนักดำน้ำที่เข้มแข็งเรามีภาครัฐที่ทำงานด้านนี้อยู่เยอะใช่ไหมคะแต่ในขณะเดียวกันเนี่ยระหว่างที่เราเก็บขึ้นมาเนื่องจากมันยังไม่ได้มีการเก็บข้อมูลที่เหมือนกันในทุกๆพื้นที่บางคนเก็บขึ้นมาแล้วก็เก็บออกไปบางคนเก็บแล้วมีการชั่งน้ำหนักบางคนเก็บแล้วมีการนับชิ้นกลายเป็นว่าเรายังไม่มีมาตรฐานจริงๆอะค่ะในการมาเก็บข้อมูลเหล่านี้
The non-governmental organization is helping to coordinate lessons that teach recreational divers how to use scientific tools to help marine scientists. Off the shore of Phuket, 9-year-old Wulawalan Tharawatayanon stood out from a group of 20 amateur divers as she penned down notes intently on her clipboard.
ถ้าสมมติว่าได้เก็บขยะมาก็สามารถแยกได้ว่าประเภทของมันคืออะไร
The collected data is used to determine the extent of the ghost gear at a particular location and its environmental impact on the area, and could prove crucial in implementing policy and legislation in the future. Since kicking off its Marine Science Citizen Initiative (MARSCI) program in 2020, Ao Thai Marine Ecology Center (ATMEC) has trained over 100 divers to become citizen scientists and have collected enough data to publish an academic paper about the threat of ghost gear in Thai waters.
พอเรามีข้อมูลเหล่านี้ค่ะองค์กรต่างๆภาคส่วนเนี่ยสามารถหยิบ raw data เอาไปใช้ต่อได้เพื่อดูว่าเราจะต้องการแก้ไขปัญหาที่ตรงไหนก่อนมันควรจะเป็นตรงนโยบายหรือมันควรจะเป็นตรงกฎหมายหรือมันควรจะเป็นตรงการจัดการ
Environmental Justice Foundation (EJF) has engaged the help of around 500 local fishers to collect discarded fishing nets. Some 130 tons of used fishing gears have been collected and recycled into new products.
ที่จริงจะบอกว่าการจัดการเรื่องขยะเนี่ยมันเป็นแบบเหมือนเป็นปัญหาที่ใหญ่มากระดับโลกระดับประเทศอะไรอย่างเงี้ยซึ่งมันคงต้องใช้หลายๆหน่วยงานเข้ามาดูแล EJF ก็เป็นส่วนหนึ่งที่เข้ามาเหมือนซัพพอร์ตในส่วนของสร้างกลไกหนึ่งดีกว่าค่ะในการช่วยทำให้ปัญหาของขยะที่อยู่ในธรรมชาติหรือปนเปื้อนในธรรมชาติเนี่ยมันลดลงอย่างมีรูปแบบ
We also have to learn from the flaws of endemic corruption, of gross inequality between the rich and the poor, the propensity to adopt unbridled capitalism to the extent that you ignore the plight of the masses deprived from basic opportunities. So we have to steer that policy issue of governance, of fiscal responsibility, at the same time do not lose sight of the key priorities, the issue of globalization.
Nyoman Sujiato, a 51-year-old local diving instructor, had witnessed this before. The first time, in 2010, he thought the coral looked beautiful as they transformed into a pearly white color. But later, he discovered that such beauty came at a cost. The coral were actually bleaching and in danger of dying, a coral expert later informed him. The region was hit by a second mass bleaching event in 2016.
Ya, dikencengin dan habis itu kita potong ujung-ujungnya. Nah ini kita bisa harus potong nih. Gitu. Karena menarik ikan. Ini untuk ikan nih kayak. Dan karang hampir 90% pada saat itu memutih gitu. Tidak melihat jenis karang lagi, mau branching mau yang masif. Itu semua memutih. Jadinya kami sangat terkejut dan tentunya itu juga berpengaruh sangat negatif kepada karang yang kami tanam. Bukan hanya yang alami, yang kami tanam ini yang sebenarnya membuat kami nyesek gitu loh. Jadinya dada ini nyesek. Terus banyak karang yang kita tanam itu mati gitu loh.
Sugiarto has planted at least 6,000 artificial substrates in the sea to grow coral reefs.
Tetapi kita mulai berpikir bahwasannya apa sih yang bisa kita lakukan mungkin untuk meringankan, seperti mungkin kita harus rutin turun pada saat itu, mengecek, memonitoring, melaporkan kepada kawasan lain, teman-teman yang lain, melakukan pembersihan, mungkin karang yang sudah bleaching terus ada sampahnya kita ambil. Nah itu akan sangat membantu. Walaupun mungkin efeknya mungkin nggak begitu besar, tetapi itulah yang sedikit hal yang kita bisa lakukan.
He has been regarded as a local conservationist hero in his village of Bondelem for the past 17 years, monitoring the life of coral reefs in the sea, just off the coast of the northern part of the Indonesian resort island of Bali.
Harus bisa menjadi leadernya open water lah gitu. Ya, jangan terus malu-malu nanti malah kita yang ini ngambil lama. 12 tahun lebih lama kita standar itu. Kami berharap makin tahun makin banyak orang yang bisa bergabung, mengerti dan terus ikut melakukan ini. Dan tentunya juga harapan kami adalah yang paling besar adalah mengembalikan terumbu karang yang pernah ada di Bondelem. Karena menurut cerita orang tua, terumbu karang kita dulu sangat bagus.
The world so far has warmed by 1.2 degrees Celsius above pre-industrial levels, and scientific evidence suggests the world has already reached a disastrous tipping point at which 70% to 90% of the world's coral reefs are predicted to die under such warming.
Itu maksimal 3-5 menit. Saat begitu ditaruh, nah kemudian dan terumbu karang yang ditanam di sini itu adalah jenisnya bermacam-macam. Karang yang ditanam di Rimstar ini itu kalau bisa
proses coral bleaching atau pemanasan global itu akan lebih sering terjadi di Indonesia. Kalau sebelumnya itu dari 98 ke 2010 ke 2016 ke 2000 itu waktunya rentang waktunya semakin singkat, dan diprediksi untuk waktu-waktu mendatang di Indonesia itu akan atau di Indo-Pasifik akan semakin sering terjadi yang namanya coral bleaching setiap 1 atau 2 tahun dengan iklim seperti sekarang ini.
An elephant in Thailand has delivered a rare set of twins in a dramatic birth process. It injured its carer after he tried to rescue one of the newborns. The 36-year-old Asian elephant named Jamjari gave birth to an 80-kilogram male at the Ayutthaya Elephant Palace and Royal Kraal north of Bangkok on the night of June 7th.
ออกมาตอนออกมา ถึงเนี่ยก็มีตัวผู้เนี่ยที่กำลังเพิ่งคลอดออกมาก็ช่วยกันเช็ดตัวนะคะช่วยกันเช็ดตัวและกระตุ้นเพื่อให้น้องมีการตอบสนองระหว่างที่ช่วยกันเช็ดตัวและพยุงให้เขาลุกขึ้นให้ไวที่สุดเนี่ยอยู่ดีก็มีเสียงตะโกนว่ามีช้างคลอดออกมาอีกเชือกนึงทุกคนก็หันไปดู
The mother elephant panicked when she suddenly gave birth to a female calf weighing 60 kilograms 18 minutes later and attacked her new arrival.
And then, of course, the mother attacked that baby because she'd never had twins before because it's very rare. And that had caused her some pain, so she was attacking it. So the mahuts, who are the carers of the elephants, jumped in there trying to get the baby away so she didn't kill it. And one of the mahuts actually got a broken ankle in the process.
The birth of opposite-sex twins in Thailand, thus recording the world's first male and female elephant twins. Previously, there had been several births of elephant twins, but involving births of the same sex. The elephants are now cared for at the Royal Kral Center. The care center allows visiting tourists to ride, feed, and bathe the elephants. Many conservation groups oppose elephant riding, arguing it is stressful for the animals and often involves abusive training. The center argues the rides allow the animals to socialize and exercise, and promote conservation of the species, which is endangered in Southeast Asia and China.
ก็ดีใจอะค่ะว่าที่เราอยู่ใกล้ๆคือแบบว่ามีช้างมาคลอดลูกอะไรอย่างเงี้ยปกติไม่เคยเห็นแล้วก็ปกติน้องจะไม่กล้าเข้าใกล้แต่คือวันนี้มาคือกล้าเข้าใกล้อะ
Jamjari has now accepted her calves, who are so small that a special platform has been built to help them reach up to suckle.
The little girl, she's quite small, and she's not able to reach the mother's milk. And the boy, I don't know if he's taller, but I don't know if he's just lazy or a bit slower. But he's not been feeding either. So they've been expressing the milk and syringe feeding them.
According to research organization Save the Elephants, the birth of twin elephants is a rare occurrence, only forming in about 1% of births. However, the birth of male-female twins are even more unusual.
And people look at it from time to time, from my generation to my children's generation, that they realize that it's still authentic, still relevant to the context of my time. So I think I'm humble to be able to contribute. I mean, although it takes 47 years for people to recognize that, paddy, it becomes a good choice that unified everyone, because everyone take paddy or rice as a staple food. Concept and design, although it can come together, but I think the concept is much stronger when you have the right ingredient. A stalk of paddy, or rather a sheaf of paddy. In Malay, they call it segemal padi, where people rip the paddy and then they bind it. It becomes like that. Then it reminds me of the story of the king who wants to pass the throne to his 3 sons, thinking that who is smart enough to understand. So what he gives is a set of arrows, a bunch of arrows, and then asking each of his sons to break them. So 2 of the sons tried to break, and they couldn't break until the youngest son break the arrow one by one. So I think this gives me give me the finality of the concept of how the shift become a good unifying elements of economy shared by the 5 countries of Southeast Asian nation. Yellow ochre reminds us of matured paddy. So we are talking about a group of Asian who are mature enough to look for themselves and then understand their predicament. By standing on their own, they cannot last. So they have to unite. I think that's the essence of ASEAN, I believe.
for the past 3 months. Indonesian rice farmer Nalela has had to carry jerry cans of fuel for water pumping machines to her rice field, which is now facing the threat of crop failure due to an ongoing drought in the country's westernmost province of Aceh on the island of Sumatra. The water pumps have become her only hope of keeping her crops afloat, as she said the village has not had rain in the past 3 months.
Ya, ini berpotensi bisa gagal panen. Mungkin ini 50-50 antara 50% bisa jadi atau 50% gagal panen.
Dan umumnya di sini sudah kekeringan total atau seperti apa sawahnya, Kak?
Kekeringan total. Ini udah kekeringan total. Ini rasa sawah di sini ada semua bornya. Ya. Karena nggak sanggup lagi, air di irigasi pun dah nggak ada lagi.
The drought is also affecting daily rituals, such as bathing. The Lu Spring public bath in Great Aceh Regency has been mostly dry for about a month, with only one pool surviving on water pumped from emergency water trucks.
Sebulan belakang, Bang.
Sebulan ke belakang memang
sudah kering. Iya, kering total. Kalau naik pun setengah cuma, nggak bakal penuh lagi.
Dan itu pun tidak lama-lama ya?
Udah, paling lama ada kemarin 3 hari cuma.
3 hari
langsung surut lagi.
Last year, about 2/3 of Indonesia, including Sumatra's neighboring island of Java, experienced its most severe dry season since 2019 due to the El Nino weather phenomenon lasting longer than usual. According to Indonesia's meteorology agency analyst and forecaster, temperatures have risen significantly since last year.
Maksimum ya, suhu maksimum kalau tahun ini kita cukup tinggi ya, hampir 37,8 derajat Celcius tadi ya. Kalau untuk suhu terasa mungkin lebih dari itu karena ada penambahan istilahnya kelembapan udara akan menambah suhu terasa seperti itu. Bandingan dengan tahun lalu pasti lebih tinggi ya, karena kita bicara rata-rata. Kalau rata-rata kan dia akan mengambil nilai tengah dari suhu tersebut.
In recent days, cities in Japan, Indonesia, and China have registered record-breaking temperatures. In June, Indonesia's climate agency had warned of a prolonged dry season, resulting in drought and heightened risks of forest fires.
Autonomous driving has just been launched.
In Wuhan, China, the rapid adoption of robo-taxis is testing the impact of driverless cars on employment. Baidu's Apollo Go operates 24/7 in Wuhan, serving 7.7 million residents, over half the city's population. Unlike traditional taxis, these autonomous vehicles do not have a supervising driver but rely on a service assistant for communication if issues arise. Baidu has not addressed concerns about job losses from Apollo Go. However, local taxi drivers claim that robo-taxis have taken a significant share of short-distance urban trips, affecting their earnings. Baidu plans to expand to 100 cities by 2030 and deploy 1,000 new robot access in Wuhan, aiming to break even by year-end. Economist Sun Tianchen notes that while robo-taxis and AI tutors impact certain sectors, a nationwide rollout could prompt government intervention to manage unemployment.
Currently, we're not at the stage yet because things like Baidu Apollo is at a very early stage of development. It hasn't been profitable, and it has to deal with a lot of regulatory challenges. So I won't see it becoming a real threat in the probably next 5 to 10 years. But assuming that comes true, I think we can think about two things. The first thing is that actually the bottom line for the government is social stability, which means that rising unemployment as a result won't be acceptable.
Meanwhile, at a major Beijing driving school, AI has replaced many human instructors. Since automating instruction in 2019, Eastern Pioneer Driving School has reduced its teaching staff by half, with 80% of students now opting for AI instructors. The school's high-tech control center monitors 610 cars equipped with AI, providing real-time feedback. Students also train using VR simulators before driving AI-equipped cars. As China leads in autonomous driving, it invests heavily in these technologies, with recent approvals for advanced driver assistance systems and draft regulations for autonomous vehicles.
让学员呢从初期的在 VR 上训练，从基础驾驶、场地驾驶、道路驾驶，包括安全防御驾驶，结合后期的 AI 训练，一些 AI 车，把整个的这个训练呢形成一个体系。自从我们这个使用这种训练模式以后，训练的标准化、统一化的这个大幅的提升，而且呢，就是在这个训练过程中，学员的感受也好，或者体验也好，包括我们自己的这种合格率的提升，还有成本的下降，都有一个大的一个好的前景。
China's focus on innovation, as emphasized by the president, is evident in these advancements. The government is balancing the push for technological progress with potential job threats, as the sector evolves from speculative to tangible economic impacts. Some predicts that Baidu's Apollo Go might pose a significant threat in 5 to 10 years. The challenge for central and local governments will be managing this transition, ensuring that innovation does not come at an unsustainable cost to workers and the broader economy.